to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now call the March 2nd, 2023 Village Board meeting to order. Roll call, number 3. All board members are present. Department heads are present except for Nathan, and he is excused. And also our attorney, who isn't.
He's here.
He left the
Yeah.
board.
He just went.
He was here,
Just
right?
walked
he
out.
walked-
Yeah, but he left.
Oh,
Well, he left his jacket in the water.
okay, so he's coming back. Okay, number 4, agenda changes. Are there any? No? Okay. 5, consent agenda. A, presentation of accounts and other claims against the village. If there are no questions, I would need a motion to accept.
I have one quick question. The corporate network solutions charge, the $2,010, that for a whole computer? It starts off with post-warranty care pack.
What are you looking at?
About the 6th or 7th one down.
Let me look at the invoice.
It's actually 3 invoices.
Yeah, there's 3 invoices to corporate network. Was that for a whole computer or?
I doubt it.
Says desktop
I
and
think
module
that's the
screen
Lauren's.
and the warranty pack.
Lauren's new
It's
computer.
For Lauren?
labor for setting up Lauren's, $1,025 for post-year warranty care pack. And then the computer was $920.
920 is part of the,
Do you want to just pass it down?
Oh, so you have a break, yeah.
Yeah, it's broken down. And part of Lauren's, I got that grant for $600, so that's coming off the top of that.
What is a 1-year post-warranty care pack? What is that?
like an extended warranty.
Yeah, I think so.
So,
Warranty seems after the warranty.
Yeah.
so we're paying $1,000 warranty on a computer, $1,025 warranty on a computer that was only $920?
That does seem crazy.
Yeah, that does, that
Um,
seems kind of ridiculous.
Did Nathan sign that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's got Nathan's signature on there.
No, there was the invoice behind it. so-
Oh, the invoice?
Yeah.
Should be, yeah.
It just says Lauren Computer.
Let me see it.
You might
Just,
have more.
it's your, yeah, $920 for the computer and $1,025 for, or $850 for, oh, this is other stuff. Post-year warranty. I think this is for something else.
Lisa got a new computer as well, maybe that's warranty on hers as well, I'm not sure, I guess I would refer that to Nathan.
It's listed as a split. $850 for one warranty and $175 for the other. I just questioned it because it seemed like it was a lot. And then, you know, to pay a $1,000 warranty on something, and
Right,
it
that's-
wasn't that expensive, seemed a little, even if, like for 1 year.
I can maybe have Nathan email you.
Yeah,
Some more
if you
info.
wouldn't mind.
Okay,
It looks like it's split between a warranty between two devices, but
could be
even with that
because Lisa got
amount
a
for a
new
year,
one.
that seems a little excessive. Okay. That was my only question.
Okay, then we need a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Roll
Aye.
call.
Aye.
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 Motion carried. 6, pre-registered citizens to be heard.
There are none.
Okay. 7, committee reports. 8, library board. Pat?
We met this past Tuesday, approved the annual report that gets submitted to the DPI. The Personnel and Finance Committee looked at it first with Ally, and then they brought it to the full board. We also moved to move Ally's job review to October, which is more consistent with the rest of the village employees. And that was about it.
Okay, then we will move to 8, Unfinished business from previous meetings, there is none. 9, new business. A, discussion and possible action on donation of excess rubber mulch to Hortonville School District.
So this is part of a larger project that I've asked our staff to kind of take on when they're not moving snow and salting roads, is to go through and start cleaning up areas behind our shops, within our shops. Let's get some of the stuff that we're not using anymore, or stuff that nobody even knows what it is, out of there, or if we're not using it, sell it. Just try to get a lot more organized than what it is down there. And one of the things that's taking up a lot of space right now is these 2,000-pound sacks of black rubber mulch. They were originally purchased for Alonzo and Miller Parks, but we ordered way too much of it. So right now, my worry is they've been staying there for a while now, and if they continue to sit there and the bags deteriorate, we're going to have 10 to 12,000 pounds of rubber mulch mess in the back of our wastewater treatment facility. So in conversations with the school district, they donated a whole bunch of stuff to the village, as far as some whiteboards, some office equipment, things like that. And as in our conversations, they mentioned that they could use this rubber mulch around their signs. So one of the things Nathan and I discussed was potentially donating 4 of the 5 of these 2,000-pound sacks to the school district, and keeping one for maintenance on the parks on Alonzo and Miller Park right now, and then in the future moving to more of a poured rubber in our playgrounds. If you can, I included a couple photos, and on the second photo you can see how this rubber mulch kind of spills out onto sidewalks, onto other areas of the playground, and B, you can see kind of the sod and other things that collect on the rubber mulch, which makes it a really hard cleanup for our maintenance crews, because you can't just blow that stuff off, because if you try to blow the grass off, you're also blowing the mulch everywhere. And so in the future, I think moving forward, we'd like to try to move towards a more poured rubber for our playground areas. And knowing that, I think maybe donating these to the school would be a good use of it. Keep with foster a good relationship with the school district, and not have them in the back of our warehouse and we're taking up space that we could use for other things.
What's the value on these?
So originally purchased, they're about $400 a piece.
So it'd be $1,742.
Yep.
Exactly.
Good name.
What'd you say?
$1,742 is what we would be donating. And since they, like he said, they gave us stuff also.
And we're looking at doing other things with them, as far as some of the things that they're doing down at Otto Miller, and potentially doing some cost sharing once they finish the construction on the high school for lighting and things like that.
If no one has questions, I would need a motion.
I'll make a motion to donate 5,
Or
4, okay, donate 4 rubber mulch super sacks to Hortonville Area School District.
second.
Roll call. Peter?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. B, discussion and possible action on early hire of facilities operator 1.
So, I'm guessing most of you are aware, but Rob Stiles is going to be retiring. His last day is April 4th. So we have the position out right now. We've gotten some good candidates. I have a bunch of requests for interviews out right now. We have two have already accepted for interviews next week. So the idea behind this would be to, if these interviews go well next week, add a potential hire date for the week before Rob leaves, so that he can spend a week with the new hire, kind of going over a lot of the things, duties that he has, and kind of help with the training of this new person his last week before he retires. So that's kind of the idea behind this motion.
Does anyone have questions?
I guess the only question I had, and maybe, I know Nathan's not here to answer this, but the third line under his early hire facilities operator one says the cost over budget numbers above includes about $7,250 in payout to the retiring employee for sick, vacation, and comp. And I was
So that's
trying,
the payout
right,
for Rob retiring that wasn't budgeted.
okay,
In hindsight, maybe it should have been, but that number isn't,
it's included in these amounts, though.
yes,
Okay, so really it's not significantly over that,
no,
what you're asking for then, okay,
it would be just 1 week additional.
yeah, okay.
And depending on where that person comes in as, on an hourly rate, if it's, depending on their experience,
Mhm.
it may, if they're hired at a lower rate, that number will go down with time
Sure.
too, because there'll be a cost savings from Rob's hourly rate.
I'll make a motion to approve the early hire facilities operator one.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. C, discussion and possible action on MSC camera system. Chris?
Yep, I'll put down, I passed out a comparison sheet, I did get a third quote as requested. Then I just kind of broke it down onto a spreadsheet for you to be able to see. It appears that like every company that you call has a better idea of what they think is a good camera system. So, I mean, if you're looking there, the number of ports is gonna be the same, 24. One's doing a DVD, the other one's doing an NVR. One's got 8 terabyte, the other one's got 40 terabyte. However, my understanding is that the higher, the clearer that your camera is, so if you have a 2 megapixel, it's not gonna be as clear as an 8 megapixel or a 5 megapixel, so, so that might be a difference in price, from quote number 1 to quote number 2. Quote number 1 is using plastic lenses, the other company is using a glass lens. Again, if you have a camera that's outside, it's with the elements, it's gonna start to haze over. The ones inside get dirty with dust and everything else, so they're getting scratched. The one out in the hallway is just really fuzzy. The one that was working in the back parking lot was just very fuzzy because it was out in the element. Going down to the bottom, this quote number 2 is looking at upgrading there's 4 monitors, so my administrative assistant has a monitor so that she can see what's going on down in the hallway. There's one in the evidence room, because if I'm the only one there in the evidence room, I can't tell if anybody's coming to the door. And then there's 2 of them in the squad room so that the officers can see what's going on also around the building. This camera that's out here is a very important camera. It goes to the sign which says that this is a safe place to be able to exchange. We had a domestic violence victim that came in last week. She explained to us that she does an exchange and she does it in our parking lot because we have a camera. That camera does not work all the time. It goes up and down, up and down. So all in all, quote number 1 And I think the big reason is because it's only 2 megapixel, it's gonna come in at 19,000. Quote number 2 has got 8 megapixel, it's got the glass lenses. That one's coming in at 26 with the additional, I'm not really sure if we need to do the monitors, but that's an additional 5,000 for the monitors. And quote number 3, once you replace all of the cameras, that one will come in at 27,000.
Yeah, how much?
27,000.
Okay.
17 if we go with them right now, but every time we have a camera go down, depending upon if it's an inside camera or an outside camera. So they gave us a quote that you have in this packet, and this quote says $16,187.79. You have to add an additional $1,200 to that quote, because this one over here went down. No, I'm sorry, the one in the back went down. So, and that one was not included in this quote, and that went down last week.
And they have no warranty in Virgin?
I don't know, I'm assuming
Yeah,
it's
it
a 3-year
says-
warranty.
It said none here, so I just.
Yeah.
Chris, can you explain the annual fee on Convergent?
Well, because basically what they said is once all the cameras have been replaced, that there will be no annual fee, because I think it's cloud-based. That's what it looks like with number 2, same thing. And number 3, he was telling me that there's a $540 annual fee for the cameras.
On number 3?
No, number one.
Number
Number
one.
one.
Or number 1, yeah.
Yeah.
But what's 16 at $3,168?
16 licenses. It's the licenses that you're paying for.
16 of them
There's
at that price?
Yeah, there's a total of 18 cameras.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, they're not at 3,000 each. It's 3,000 for 16 licenses.
Oh, so it's not the at, it's
Right,
Oh,
right.
Well, that-
16
okay.
for
Yeah, 16
3168
licenses.
for,
Okay.
not at.
Right,
But
that's a
still,
little better.
sure. Sorry.
Are all 3 of these systems with remote access?
Yes.
Okay. I think of in the event of like an active shooter or something, that if we're outside the building, we'll be able to access to determine where people are.
So what's your recommendation?
My recommendation would be to go with C, or I'm sorry, looking at
CSQ?
my sheet here, the number 2 one.
Okay.
Yeah, the CSQ. I think that it's a better system. The only problem with that one is that when we get out to that pole out there, there's a junction box that may have to be also installed in there. It may or may not.
So when it says $49.90 for additional monitors,
That's gonna be the 4 monitors and the brackets and
4.
everything. Yeah,
okay.
yep.
So they're about $1,250 a piece?
He's got it broken down in the quote. So he's got 2 Ultra 4K HDMI transmitters, 1 8-port gigabyte pole network switch, 4 Ultra 4 HMI receivers, 4 of the Ultra 4K 32-inch display monitors, wall brackets, wireless USB mouse, 6 of the HDMI jumper cables, 1 Cat 6 jumper cable with a Cat 6E network cable with connectors.
Do we have
Yeah, but
monitors
none of that's for the
currently?
monitors.
No,
That's
Well,
all,
this is-
that's
this
all for
is-
the camera
that's all the
system.
hardware.
Right, this
Yeah.
is, well, this is
No,
to
this
be
is the
able to
quote for
run
the
these,
4,000.
because these are run from other parts of the
The
building.
4,000
So
includes
there's
all that.
2 in the squad room, there's 1
Brackets.
up by the secretary, and then there's another one that's over in the evidence
And
room.
your TVs, they're not monitors,
They're
they're
remote access.
they're 4K.
But it's in there logging in,
Well,
or is it hardwired?
yeah, he's gonna hardwire it to the switches, to the actual run them right to the NVR.
So it's parts and labor.
So these are all hardwired? Is that what you're saying?
Right to the NVR.
Right to the NVR.
Yeah. To the poles?
Was there conversation for another camera in the library?
There was, the Hunter one has got a second one. That one is it says library for $1,622.46. I don't know, Ally and I kind of talked about it a little bit. They're looking at putting one on the corner of her office. It would be kind of one that suspends from the ceiling, so that you can get that back door. However, we have a camera on that back door. But then it would kind of be able to get all angles of the library. Right now, when you walk in the door, it's right over the door, so you can't see who's walking in the door except for checking the camera outside of the door to be able to see who walks in the door, if that makes sense.
So there's a camera in the hallway?
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a couple of them in the hallways. There's 2 of them in this corner here. So anybody that walks in the police entrance door, we can't see them until they get far enough this way or they walk into the PD. So we have no idea who they are until they are already in. And then there's one down by the restrooms.
Okay, so for some clarification, Julie will understand this because she's got cameras, but for everybody else, the 8 megapixel cameras, like on the interior cameras, literally won't make any difference, right? Over the 2. I mean, it'll help, like the camera here to go to the parking lot, that'll make a difference. But the camera, like if you take that camera there and look at me and it's an 8 megapixel or it's a 2 megapixel, you're not gonna be able to tell the difference, right? Until you're trying to look at somebody that was in the back kitchen there, if there's somebody was doing something in that kitchenette area back in there, it might make a difference. But interior at close distances, 2 megapixel, 8 megapixel won't make any difference at all. So,
Depends on the lighting.
what's that?
We found that it depends on the lighting.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
like this hallway here, not wonderful lighting. You know, that's where I would be concerned with putting like a 2 megapixel with dim lighting. And because of there's just not that contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, the contrast ratio is not dependent upon the number of megapixels, so.
No.
That just determines how granular the picture can be. So, and that comes into play when you try to zoom in when objects are further away. When they're very close, it's very difficult to tell the difference. So, just so everybody understands, you know, what you're paying for an 8 megapixels everywhere, and realistically, you probably need like the ones out in the parking lot, the ones here, the ones in the back. But interior cameras, you know, they look crystal clear, but you're not really getting, you know, something significant over and above what you already have. So if you think about what you're trying to record, like somebody walking down the hallway, right? You know, the difference between what you're going to see on a 2 megapixel and what you're going to see on an 8 megapixel isn't going to make a substantial difference in whether or not you can recognize a person, whether or not you can see what activities they're doing, if they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing. If you want to be able to, if they open up their wallet and you want to be able to zoom in and tell whether or not if they've got 20s or singles in their wallet, yeah, you might be able to tell the difference then, but that's not what the cameras are there for. Just so we have an understanding.
An 8 megapixel from my driveway, I can get license plates at the intersection.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the fact that there's glass lenses. Maybe Jim could elaborate more on this, but the plastic ones do get cloudy after a while, especially outside.
I haven't seen it. I have
I'm sure
cameras
the
up
sun-
around
I'm
my
sure the
house.
sun destroys
It
them.
depends on
They break down.
how they're done. Yeah. Interior ones, it makes no difference.
Yeah.
As far as scratching, that's just somebody, you know, they almost never get touched, and if they do, they should have just been dusted.
But exterior glass.
Exterior
we
glass.
saw on
Exterior, if
slides.
you get sun on plastic, it'll fade over time.
Like it's weird and they get cloudy.
But
Yeah.
glass has problems just the same though, because plastic doesn't react to cold and heat the same way that glass does. So glass fogs up where plastic typically doesn't. Because you can cool down glass and you can heat up, right? So you can cool down plastic and heat up plastic and still see through it the same. But if you cool down glass, if the air around the glass is cooled off, the glass will retain the heat, which causes condensation, which causes a blurry picture. Until you know, it's just like your windshield on your car, right? When you get up in the morning and you start it up, it might be a little frosted, and then after the temperature equalizes, then the frost goes away and you can see. So plastic, you typically don't have that. So it's a trade-off. It's not, everything is better on one side than the other.
I do have a question about the monitors. So I understand the hard wiring and all that. Would our existing monitors work with what they, I mean, hard wiring is hard wiring, but a monitor is a monitor. It's simply
Right.
plug.
And that's why you broke it up into 2 quotes.
So we
in
wouldn't-
case we wouldn't have to.
We don't have to go with
necessarily-
new monitors if we don't want to. So that would take almost 5,000 off
It
of
would be the
that.
26 number that's up there instead of the 31.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're not.
That's what I'm looking at.
And it doesn't look like they're doing like independent controls at each of the monitors. Like if you get down to the end, it says that the other 2 monitors would display the same as the main monitor, which means that you're only gonna actually have control over the display based off of the one station that you're at. So if you wanted to switch between, seeing 9 cameras or 16 cameras or
All of
whatever, it's gonna show up on all of those monitors, you're not gonna have independent controls on them. So I don't see any serious benefit to the monitors.
No, I think the monitors
And
can
it-
be skipped, but
Ridiculously priced for what they're doing.
Chris, how many total cameras are there?
18.
And you
So
wanna
of the
add-
18, how many should be 8 megapixel outside? 4,
No, 7,
7?
maybe 8.
Okay, so we could look at an alternate quote of 10, 2 megapixels for interior?
So one of the things I didn't like about reading this was the pole one.
Yeah.
The quote, I'm pretty sure it was a CSQ quote. If I get it wrong, don't be mad at me. But they're using all bullet cameras, right? Turret.
Yeah.
They're calling it turret cameras,
Bullet
right?
cameras.
So they were going to use like 3 turret cameras out here, which is going to cover 270 degrees of the parking lot, not 360 degrees. They would have to use, if you're going to use turret cameras, you have to use 4, right? Because they're
Right.
basically just, they call them like a bullet style, and they're not like that. They're,
But they are. So
yeah,
if you have the pole that's in the middle of the parking lot, they're gonna have one this way, one this way, one this way. There's one over there that goes this, there's one over there
Yeah.
that goes this, so the whole parking lot. He wanted to put a 4th one on that pole,
okay,
so that it can look over at those neighbors' yards, and I said no.
okay,
No need to.
So,
Yes.
there's no
Yeah.
need.
okay, I just,
The whole parking lot is
covered.
covered with what we have.
okay.
because
I just
of the
wanna make sure we
mounted
understood
Because the ones on the building.
Because the other ones are, they're negative 360 degree cameras.
Did he give you an alternate quote on a 2 megapixel camera? Did he tell you what those prices were?
No.
No. So should you go back to him and ask him to requote it with 10 8 megapixel? Or 8 each 8 megapixel? Because that's what you're telling us are outside, which I think we all agree would be best. Correct?
I agree.
Mhm.
I agree.
And then 10 of the 2 megapixel for the interior use.
I can do that.
You can
I
break
mean, it
it
might
down.
be a reduction in the cost a little bit,
Well, it
because
should
those
be.
cameras are significantly less expensive.
Yeah.
And they might say, well, we're not really happy with 2 megapixel, and they might suggest 5 megapixel, which is right in the middle, which would be,
Right.
it's just, you're paying for quality of video when you're not necessarily looking for quality of video, you're looking for,
So can we
Content.
table this discussion or decision until the next meeting?
I think the hallway should be a higher one though than, I think it should be similar to outside because that hallway is very dark. That hallway.
Like a 4 megapixel, in my opinion. If you're gonna do 8 or 4, I think 2 is just, it's too dim. It's just too dim out here. And when I
But-
say contrast, I mean like, so like you're walking through and it's not a matter of the contrast, it's the ambient lighting that's around you. That's what it picks up. I think of dusk. Dusk is always a really hard time. This seems like dusk out here.
so what I always tell customers when they're looking at quality for their camera systems is, if they want to increase the quality, increase the lighting. Because almost all cameras look great during the day. But when it starts to get dark, then they lose the contrast. So, I mean, there's probably less expensive alternatives to just adding more lighting to the hallway.
This is what the camera system looks like right now.
Okay. And what, is this 2 megapixel?
This is all 2 megapixel, so this is the
So
hallway
how
right
many
here.
smartphones are hooked up to this?
That's what we were gonna cover.
But that's not
Public
bad.
safety.
No, that's not bad. Actually, Jim, looking at this isn't,
That's a 2
And that's just
megapixel.
typical lighting,
This is 2 megapixel?
Yep.
yeah.
And what were you saying, Julie?
I said, looking at that,
Yeah,
it's not bad.
yeah.
It
that's
depends
what
on
I'm
where the
saying.
lighting is and where the cameras are. You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's why I
just-
said the
yeah.
simplest solution when you're trying to get, yeah, that's exactly what I would say.
Yeah.
The simplest solution when you're trying to add quality to video surveillance is to add lighting.
Yeah.
And it's not to throw more money at the camera, it's to add more lighting, more ambient lighting. Because the cameras, even more megapixels, if you don't have contrast, they don't pick up as much. So if you add, when I look at outdoor cameras, I always look at mounting the camera somewhere where the light is behind it. So that way the light still shines forward, doesn't wash out the camera exposure, and you still get good lighting and you can see everything.
I mean, as long as lighting,
Yeah, but these were add-on cameras, I don't know what they are, but they're horrible.
where are those?
These are in our evidence room. They're very, very
And
grainy.
not all cameras are equal. I mean, 2 mega, yeah. There's a big difference.
So I'll make a recommendation that Chris goes back to CSQ and gets a requote
Yep. I would say,
on
I would suggest
8
take off the monitor.
each 8 megapixel and 10 each 2 megapixel. Now, the 8 megapixel will have a glass cover.
That's what they already have
The
quoted.
lens, yeah.
I know.
They probably have the same cameras available in
This is-
2 and 5 megapixel,
Yeah.
Right.
just at a lower price.
So I wouldn't necessarily just say 2, it might just, it depends on what they have available.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
Just get pricing on
Just
their
get-
options.
yeah, their megapixel options for interior lower than the 8.
and have them take the monitors off. So as the, well, I
It's
suppose
a-
it's a
it's
separate
a-
quote, so it doesn't
yeah,
matter.
Yeah.
it's a separate quote.
Are there any concerns for safety during that 2 weeks till the next meeting? I'm thinking about the woman you mentioned with Exchange. Is that someone you could follow up with? So there could be an officer nearby or something for the Exchange?
But we would have to explain that to the whole public, she's not the only one that uses it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that use,
Right,
they rely on that system out there.
right.
I mean, it runs, it's just not consistent, right?
Right.
That's not one that's completely out, that's
Right.
one that's just,
Yeah,
has issues.
kind of hit and miss.
So, my other question, and I was reading through this, is the outdoor cameras, were those wireless cameras? Or were they hardwired?
Everything's hardwired.
Because one of the quotes had one of the cameras out there being like a Wi-Fi. I don't remember which one it was. I was reading through it and it threw off a red flag because it's if you have problems with the Wi-Fi, you
No,
lose
my
all the
underst-
cameras.
Yeah, my understanding is that they're all hardwired.
Okay, I'll have to read through them again, but I saw one in the stuff that you sent out. I don't know which one it was. I'll
And
take
the-
a look at it.
They're saying a 2 to 3 week turnaround? Once,
For CSQ, not until the end of April and for Hunter. If we would put a down payment down tomorrow.
Hunter one says that you need Wi-Fi to view from offsite or internet from offsite.
Well, yeah, that's
They're
offsite.
separate, but.
Yeah.
Hang on.
But no, one of the cameras, one of the things said.
No, you
Or you
didn't.
can
Camera.
bring this back to public safety next
So,
week?
Chris, one thing,
Then we could
Yeah.
decide on the following meeting.
We could do that.
Bring it in public
Where do you see
safety.
it?
Can you get it that
Or
quick?
maybe
Well,
you
here
asked
are
the
parts,
question.
don't
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
4 Ultra, 4.
So we'll make sure it's on the agenda for the meeting on Thursday.
Yeah, and then we can throw it on the next board meeting.
On the first page of CSQ. No,
question on the CSQ.
Second page of CSQ. Meeting monitors, so is that gonna be removed?
It says install 32-inch Ultra K display monitors. So are they charging us to install those monitors if we already have monitors existing?
We're
No,
taking,
just-
we're taking that whole monitor
We're
thing
just
off.
taking that
get-
whole monitor. that
But in this
4,000.
quote, it actually has that as part of the labor.
And it has parts
Or is
for
that just the separate quote?
Ultra 4K 32-inch display monitors.
Yeah, that's just a separate quote for the monitors.
Okay, maybe it's a separate.
Yeah, there's 2 pages,
Yep,
so
Okay.
I'm
page
sorry.
1 down on the bottom is, and then there's this one. for
okay,
the
I'm sorry,
monitors.
I see, okay.
So basically, everyone's okay with that? We'll just do a head nod? Bring it to public safety next week. Okay.
Which is May 9th. May 9th?
March.
Huh?
March 9th,
March 9th.
next week at 6.
Can they come to board in a couple weeks?
The week
Yeah.
after.
The 16th?
Yeah,
Or- yeah.
so everyone's okay. All right, then we'll go to D, discussion and possible action on preliminary compliance alternatives plan proposal for achieving compliance with the final effluent total phosphorus limits.
So this is in response to new stringent limits for phosphorus that are going to take into effect for our effluent coming out of our wastewater treatment plant in 2027. So the DNR has a schedule in order for municipalities to meet those effluent limits. The first step would be putting together an operational evaluation report, which the village's engineer McMahon did in 2021. The second step was a compliance alternative report, which McMahon did for the village in 2022. And then this third step would be the preliminary compliance alternatives plan, which is due in September of 2023. Tony Capel from McMahon is here to answer any questions, if you have any questions on what this report will entail.
Wouldn't even know what to ask.
Yeah, I don't even know what to ask. How about some just
Just tell us.
Summary.
background
General
summary?
information, sure.
Yeah, let's
Certainly. First off, I'm Tony Capel with McMahon Associates. Probably the first time all of you are meeting me. Haven't actually been invited to a village board meeting here before, but I have been working for the village, with the village for several years, kind of on and off on an as-needed basis, primarily for WPDS permit compliant issues, just some general troubleshooting at the wastewater plant. I'm a water and wastewater engineer. Been with McMahon for about 19 years. Like I said, working with the village for several of those. So the current WPDS discharge permit has a compliance schedule for stringent effluent phosphorus limits. That limit is set to take effect in 2027. The current discharge limit is 1.0 milligrams per liter. Okay. Typically, phosphorus will come into the wastewater plant at a concentration of about somewhere between 7 to 15 is normal for a municipality. And through the treatment process, that phosphorus is removed down to a concentration less than 1 milligram per liter, prior to discharge. That's typically done by adding chemicals to precipitate the phosphorus from a soluble form to a solid form, and then that solid phosphorus is removed with the solids in the treatment through the treatment process. The limit, which is set to take effect in 2027, is a mass-based limit. So it's based on pounds per day versus a milligram per liter concentration. That's part of the total maximum daily load study that the DNR did for the watershed, which basically accounted for all the different sources of phosphorus that were polluting the surface waters in the watershed, not just the wastewater treatment facilities. Had they not done this TMDL study and accounted for those other discharges, most municipalities that are discharging to waters that are impaired for phosphorus would get a concentration-based limit of 0.075 milligrams per liter. Extremely stringent, very difficult to meet through conventional treatment alone. What the TMDL study did was, loosen those limits slightly. 0.2, the 0.833 pound per day limit, if you were to, calculate that on a concentration basis, using the discharge, the average design flow for the facility it'd be a concentration of 0.2 milligrams per liter. Currently, the facility's receiving less than the average design flow. So given that it's a mass limit, that concentration would be slightly higher. But as the facility approaches its average design flow rate, the concentration base would be 0.2. So right now it's 1. In the future, it would be 0.2. Again, very difficult to meet through conventional treatment alone. Typically, to get down to limits like that on a consistent basis, you would have an additional treatment process on the back end of the plant. Let's see. So as Aaron mentioned, this is year 3 of the compliance schedule. We completed reports in the first 2 years. The first year primarily looking at potential phosphorus source reduction measures, so reducing the amount of phosphorus coming into the plant. There really aren't a lot of feasible alternatives there, considering that the wastewater is primarily domestic in nature, and you're not pinpointing like a single industry or something that is discharging a large amount of phosphorus. And then also looking at ways to optimize the existing facility. I would consider the facility pretty close to fully optimized as far as what they can do for phosphorus removal. Currently, the chemical treatment is getting concentrations down to around that 0.3, 0.2 level on a relatively consistent basis. So, you know, I think as far as optimization of what's there, it's pretty much tapped out. The facility's doing about as well as it possibly could for phosphorus removal, just by feeding chemical like it is. Let's see. In year 3, the DNR requires a preliminary compliance alternatives plan be completed. This is the most substantial report of the compliance schedule. Over the first 4 years is a report due every year. In year 3, this preliminary compliance alternatives plan is essentially a mini facility plan where you're identifying feasible treatment and non-treatment alternatives for meeting the limit, and then doing, evaluating those alternatives on a cost-effective basis to try to come up with a recommended plan for a path forward for the village to comply with the limit by 2027. Within the Natural Resources Code, the DNR does allow for what I mentioned, non-treatment alternatives, which is essentially water quality trading. So not only would they allow for, or what you conventionally do is build, improve your treatment plant, build a filtration process on the back end that could remove the phosphorus down to these low levels. In lieu of that, realizing that the cost to do that is extreme for a lot of, especially smaller municipalities, they developed a water quality trading program where you would go out into the watershed and trade with, I guess, a willing trading partner. It could be a farmer, it could be another wastewater plant, it could be the village trading with themselves, essentially by doing certain projects in the watershed to reduce phosphorus discharges into the surface waters in different ways. So, I guess, for example, water quality trade might be the village purchasing some farmland or something, and having full control over how that piece of property is farmed, or just taking it out of production altogether, and reducing that reducing or eliminating that phosphorus load to the watershed, or working with a farmer for the farmer to implement best management practices on their land, which result in theoretical phosphorus discharges, which would then be used to I guess, offset the difference between what the village's wastewater plant is discharging compared to what the limit is. So if the limit's 0.2 milligrams per liter and the wastewater plant's discharging at, let's say, 0.4, the trade would be used to make up the difference between that 0.4 and that 0.2 without having to do further treatment. So what it is oftentimes is a more cost-effective means of meeting the limit than compared to constructing expensive treatment facility improvements to meet the limit.
So we're talking about discharge, not the water supply, but we're talking about discharge
This is
from
this
the
is
plant.
the water that's discharged from the wastewater plant.
And discharged means,
It means it's treated and then put back into the
That's coming out.
water.
Used.
into our tap or into the?
No, into the river.
Okay, that's it, okay.
Yes.
So let me see if I understand. So because it's so cost prohibitive for us to actually meet these requirements, we would go to somebody who owns a farmland out there and pay them to not use a phosphorus-based something in their farming practices to offset our discharge? Is that
It's close.
where I'm?
It's close, yeah. It wouldn't necessarily be related to the phosphorus
Okay.
or to the fertilizer, but it would be it would be changing some of their farming practices, maybe planting buffer strips along drainage ways, planting cover crops over the winter, changing a field from corn production to a harvestable grass or something.
Those are
And how-
contracts that farmers get into. Farmers get into contracts with like land conservation,
Yeah.
county land conservation. We used to do this 100-foot buffer strips along our creek and all that, but we had to also commit to soil sampling. So this discharge and going in there, then are we looking at like in 3 years now we've maxed it out because they do soil sampling, now we're looking for a new place?
Potentially, yes.
So land
Yeah.
conservation, this is like a Jim Public question. So I guess that's my fear. So like you almost
Run out of people to
you run out of people.
communicate
You run out of people
with.
to do that with, and they're in a contract with the Farm Service Agency and Land Conservation to do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just to take a step back,
Yeah.
that's one potential alternative that this report will look into.
Right.
And the reason why that works is because a lot of the phosphorus that gets into the system is tied up with sediment. So if you're doing things that reduce sedimentation, like on farm fields, stream bank erosion, things like that, you're inherently reducing phosphorus. And just to take another step back at 1,000 feet, one of the main drivers why the DNR is doing this is because they're trying to limit phosphorus going into the environment, because the majority of the lakes and surface water in Wisconsin is what's called phosphorus limited. So algae and things in the water will grow until they reach a point of using up all the nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. And once it hits that max, then the algae stops growing. And being phosphorus limited, that means phosphorus is the bottom of that rung. So once you use up all the phosphorus in a lake, you don't have any more algal blooms. So the DNR is putting these stringent limits in to try to clean up surface waters, to try to limit the amount of phosphorus that's going into the environment.
And our watershed goes to the Wolf River.
Okay.
So this is really just a report to get the
No, I think
alternatives
it'll
of what
go
our
through.
strategic
What are-
plan is for the
This
next.
was, we lived and breathed
Level.
What's our strategy to meet this?
Strategic
Is
plan
it
for
doing the
first.
water quality training that Tony talked about? Is it doing plant upgrades?
Or
Is it some
combination.
combination of both? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do different plantings, which will help get rid of it. Yeah, I mean, I remember doing all this, and it was, but it'd be interesting to see like how many acres and how much, yeah.
Right. So that's all part of the evaluation, is comparing the cost to do trading and finding willing trading partners versus just having complete control over your own destiny and doing improvements at the treatment plant.
Mhm.
Okay, so is this report gonna have the numbers
This is the report that
This is
that
the
has the
report.
numbers and.
That we plan off of to make our
Correct.
plan.
Yeah,
And then,
essentially, at the end of, by the time this report is submitted in September, the village would have essentially the plan forward to meeting that limit. And then in year 4, there's a
Budget.
final compliance alternatives plan that actually,
goes into-
that kind of commits the village to that path forward, whether it be, again, the treatment facility improvements, the water quality trading, or, again, there's a variance option. Not every municipality is eligible for it. We would, check the criteria to see if the village was eligible. But it's only a temporary means of compliance. You'd only be eligible for that variance for up to 3 permit terms, and then at that point, you would have to do something.
So to buy time, it's a Band-Aid.
It's a way to buy time. It's a simple, what the variance is it's a simple way to do a water quality trade almost. The variance would allow you to make a payment into the county, which is related to offsetting your discharge versus what the target level or the limit would be. And then they take that money and implement these best management practices for you. You don't have any control over where that money's going or how it's being used. It's just going to the county, and the county uses that pool of money to work with farmers to implement these practices and whatnot. But there's no oversight on the village's part. It's literally just
Contracting it out.
it's literally just a payment, yeah.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
Does this report in any way, shape, or form determine like our main sources of phosphorus in our water treatment plant? Like, do we have any businesses or industries or anything in our community that is contributing to be a higher phosphorus contributor to our system?
That's something we looked at over the first 2 years. We weren't able to identify any major contributors of phosphorus. The wastewater that's coming into the plant is primarily domestic in nature, and it just comes from everyone's normal everyday activities.
And if anybody wants those reports, I can get them.
Well, I'm more curious when we think about like we always talk about economic development.
Mhm.
Is there any particular, in that report, does it say what types of businesses or what types of industries or anything like that are high phosphorus outputters?
Generally it does.
Okay,
I believe so.
that'd be interesting to know for economic development. Okay, because if we all of a sudden have something built in Hortonville and it's gonna contribute to high amounts of phosphorus,
We
it's
have to
gonna
plan,
cost.
we have to plan for that, yeah.
Correct, we need to plan for that, so, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Could there be an educational component at some point too for just residential? You know, for what people use in their lawns or gardens? I know that most fertilizers now are reduced phosphorus, right?
Typically, a lot of them are no phosphorus.
Okay,
But those types of things aren't making it into
they are,
the sewer system. No.
okay,
They might eventually make it to the surface water through runoff and,
Mhm.
stormwater and those sort of things, but that's not what's being regulated here.
Okay.
This is just through use of the bathroom, the shower, laundry, cooking.
Look for low
Those sorts of
phosphorus stuff on your
activities.
labels.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So we would need a motion for McMahon to go ahead with this study.
I'll make a motion to have McMahon, move forward with the preliminary compliance alternatives plan proposal.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. E, any other miscellaneous topics for future discussion? There are none. We'll go to 10, report of village officials. A, clerk treasurer.
My report was in the packet.
Any questions for Jane? None? Okay, we will go to B, Director of Public Works, Aaron.
My report is in the packet, and I just, I guess, like to add that we did have a public bid opening for road crack sealing request for bids that we had put out about a month ago. We had 3 people submit, and in the next meeting, I'll bring those results to the board.
Okay.
But just to mention it, we were happy with the prices came in. They were actually under what we thought they would be, so.
Good. Any questions for Aaron? Okay, we'll go to C, Police Chief, Chris.
And my report is in the packet.
Any questions for Chris?
So where did we end up with the, I know, I had talked to you about the body camera stuff, about the quotes.
We're
Where did-
still.
You're still working?
Yeah, I haven't had time to work on it. I've been working with the camera system.
Okay,
It's been taking a lot of my time.
okay. The reference, the quote came in really high compared to, she's shopping around. I was just wondering where we went to.
No, I've been making some phone calls to other jurisdictions to find out what they're doing to, because they're getting the same things with the costs and everything, so. We had a chiefs meeting yesterday, so we discussed it amongst the rest of the other chiefs and stuff like that, so. We might just stay with our old tasers, and that would get rid of a lot of the cost. So that's something that I kind of have, I'm really thinking of doing so.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to D, Library Director, Ally.
As Pat said, we turned in the 2022 annual report to the state. That's a pretty massive project that takes from the end of January through all of February. So just wrapped up that, and that's about it.
And your full staff.
We're full staff, full library board. It's a wonderful feeling.
Any questions for Ally? E, Attorney.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. And then F, Administrator, and Nathan's is in the packet. And then G is Building Permit Report, that is also in the packet. Any questions on it? Okay, we'll go to 11, Communications and Miscellaneous Business. A, Black Otter Lake District News. Pat?
We did not meet last week due to a conflict in room space, so we're meeting Tuesday, March 7th, so this coming Tuesday, discussing the stocking of the lake and the trailer for the harvester.
What time?
6.
Okay. We'll go to B, Hortonville, Hortonia Fire District News. Jim?
The Hortonia Town Board met and they approved all of the proposals that we have already approved for the trailer, the truck, the forget the name of the program. What's the name of the program?
Service award program.
The service award program. So they approved funding for all of them. Jack was in attendance. I don't know if there's something else he wants to mention.
Not the trailer, that's coming directly from the fire department.
Oh, the trailer, sorry. The truck and the
Service
Service.
I can't remember the name of that program.
Length of service?
I always want to call it like a pension program.
SAT.
LOSA.
It's not LOSA.
No?
No?
It's called SAT. It used to be called LOSA, that's now called SAT, Service Award Program.
Yeah. I don't want to call it SAT.
It's called SAP.
I don't want to call it SAT program.
Okay, then we'll move to C, Gold Cross Ambulance Run Report and News. There is none. D, Hortonville Civic Association.
None.
Okay, E, Senior Activities Committee. Pat?
We met this afternoon. We planned all of March, April, and May's activities, and I want to thank the board for approving the 4 times a year for the newsletter. I think that'll make a big difference in us being able to communicate, because a lot of our seniors get the newsletter, read the newsletter as opposed to emails and Facebook and stuff, so I appreciate that. We continued planning for Autumn Fest, and piggyback on what Ally said about having a full staff, we are really reaping the benefits of having the outreach program coordinator position with Sarah on our board. Lots of collaboration and coordination programs, so real happy with that.
Do you know the final outcome on the, because we were looking at advertising for that newsletter. Do you know where we ended up with that?
For what, I'm sorry?
The newsletter?
Um,
We were looking at different forms of advertising
yeah,
for
do
it.
you
I haven't
know the
heard any more.
recent information on that? Okay. Sorry, I don't have any update.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go to 12, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Are there any? No? Okay, we'll move to 13. I would need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm offended.
We are now adjourned.
I was gonna say, I didn't